everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Rhiannon and today we're going to be making a 1920s day dress. So I'll start off by showing you my fabrics. So I have this one for the body of the dress and this one for the sleeves. It's a little bit sort of lighter and thinner than the other one. So I really wanted rose tones because I wanted them to match my kind of slightly purplish red hat. And this is the lovely Elsie, who's going to demonstrate the kind of fitting that I'm planning to do.
So this is a really simple style that is almost entirely made up of rectangles. I'm very inexperienced with 1920s dresses, so I've gone for the easiest thing possible. So the front and the back of the bodice are just going to start as two separate rectangles, which we're then going to shape the necklines, and the sleeves, again, are just rectangles that will then be gathered into the arm side. Like the bodice, the skirt is also just made up of rectangles, but an interesting thing I wanted to try and do was a cascade skirt, where for the back panel it comes slightly onto the front panel to lead to a kind of nice tulip shape as part of the skirt. Here is an of-the-time example of the kind of thing that I mean, which may turn out better than my Elsie drawings, but that is the kind of look we're going for. My inspiration for the sleeve and neckline shape of the bodice is coming here, this lady on the right in the black. It's what I felt would end up more flattering on me. Now it's on to the measurements.
So I don't know if you can tell, but I am wearing my 20s bra rather than a modern one, so I can get the accurate measurements. So we're going to start off with shoulder point, so there to shoulder point. So then we're going to just double check the widest point of my bust, so that in case anything doesn't quite match up, then it'll definitely go over. Likewise, got to get the widest point of my hips, and this is at the point where the top half is going to meet the waistband, because obviously we had the dropped waist in the 1920s. Then shoulder point where the seam will be, all the way down to hip again, so I can make sure that it covers everything. Then we also want shoulder, point of the shoulder down to my elbow, and flexed elbow width, so that I can definitely, move my arm in my sleeves. And finally I'm going to dangle the end of my tape down to round about where I want my dress length to be, and again measure up to the hip. So, or should we do a bit more risque than that? Let's hike it up a little bit. There's my knee. Now, not all these measurements are going to be the measurements of my fabric. For instance, I want nice big billowy sleeves, so that's just a minimum to make sure that I can still bend my arms. And I'm not going to have it skin tight across the bust. I'm also going to add maybe an inch or two just to get the nice sort of floaty fabric that is really popular and fashionable during the 1920s, especially during the summer. So the reason we're doing this is because I've recently acquired a sewing machine from, well, the serial number says that it's from May 1922, so I thought it would be appropriate that the first thing I make on it is a dress from 1922. So join me on my marvellous adventure to work in a clothing style that frankly I'm not that keen on, and to make something that I really like and want to wear. So let's carry on.
So here I am measuring out and then cutting out my bodice pieces. These very conveniently turned out into 60cm by 60cm blocks, so that was really convenient. And as you can see here, Grebo loves helping with the fabric cutting. You have no idea how long it took me to realise that he'd actually run off with the measuring tape. That was good. I then proceeded to do the same thing with the skirt panels and also the sleeves. So I wanted some nice embroidery on this dress just to sort of zhuzh things up a little bit. This is based on some beadwork design that I found that was from the 1920s. So all I'm doing here is tracing over the part of the design that I need with a darker pen so that it shows up through the fabric a bit better and I can trace it on there. So this is the tracing process. As you can see, I don't have a light box, so I've hung this fabric from a coat hanger for hanging skirts and positioned it against the window so I can trace the pattern onto the fabric. I'm sure there is an easier and more efficient way of doing this, but I don't know what it is. So I'm starting off by doing a stem stitch just along these sort of longer lines of the embroidery piece. I ended up having to use 2 different shades of green for the sleeves and the bodice, just because I didn't have enough of the one colour, but I think it turns out alright in the end and actually looks intentional. In an effort to use more than one technique, I decided to applique the little roses and the leaves on there. So this is some nice fabric I just found in my stash. It's kind of a dark taffeta, and with any luck that'll show up really nicely on the finished product. It goes very nicely with my hat as well. So there are 3 separate sizes of the roses on the finished piece, so I just took 3 different objects that were round. So I've got a Coke bottle top, a lipstick and a lip gloss, and I'm just going to cut around those to get pieces that are roughly the right size. I realised at this point that my fabric was actually a polyester, possibly cotton silk blend. So I decided to burn the edges to stop them from fraying. It's just a really nice quick way that you can use on ribbons and pieces of fabric so that they don't fray and you don't have to fold everything over to get them on. While I was attaching all of my applique pieces, I realised that I was having a real problem with the cotton fabric fraying, so I decided just to quickly hem that up to prevent any further damage.
So we've now finished all of our embroidery pieces, so my next step is to take about 3 inches in from either side and sew the 2 top panels together, and then stitch down from the arm side to make 1 shirt panel without the sleeves on just yet.
So to get the most out of my new old sewing machine, I decided to use French seams for all of the bodice pieces. So essentially the way it works is it's sewn twice. First you have right sides out, sew as close to sort of the edge as you can get away with, then you turn it inside out and sew along again to encase that raw edge. It makes it lightweight, it's easy to do and quick, and it also gives a nice finished result. Here is the same process, just done on the side seams.
So, and now we've got something that essentially amounts to a very baggy top. So it is a bit more fitted at the hips, and as you can see I am wearing a modern bra, so it's not sort of draping quite right, but I've got in from work today, I'm not changing my bra just to do this. So next we're going to work on the sleeves. So we're going to do essentially the same thing. We're going to make these into tubes and do exactly the same seaming process as we did before, and once that's done we'll work on attaching them.
So we've swapped our bobbins out. Now we're just catching our bottom thread, and now we're going to start by hemming the bottom of where our sleeve is going to be. Just a simple 1-2 overfold. Now we're using the French seam again, just to make the sleeve into a sleeve. So on almost all my previous projects I've managed to put the sleeve on inside out. So you want the right side against the right side, and you just slide the sleeve into the main part of the bodice, right sides together, and then pin it in place. And then we sew that down, making sure that the pins don't munch up the inside of our lovely new sewing machine. So I'm terrible at sewing round corners, so I decided to do this on my day off and hand stitch it. It's just folded twice over and then whipped into place so you can't see it on the outside. I'm still having horrible fraying problems with this pink cotton, so I'm just hemming the bottom of the bodice again so that it doesn't come apart before I can attach the skirt onto it. So we're starting off by just trimming off the already frayed fabric, then we'll fold it twice and put it through the machine.
So this is the top of the dress so far. It's pretty much turned out the way I expected, but I'm not going to do the neckline just yet because I want to see how the hanging skirt affects the weight of it and how much it pulls down. But it sits at the right point on my hips. So now we're just going to get the skirt sorted and we'll attach the two. So the plan for this is to do a cascade style skirt. So I've already hemmed some bits here again because of that fraying problem. So I'll just quickly tuck this into my shorts to demonstrate. So this will be the front panel of the skirt. Ding! And then this will come round like that, so there's a slight overlap, and that should sort of have this nice sort of almost tulip effect. So we're going to do that essentially by finding out where this point is here, so that it goes around the hip, and attaching that to this point on the outer level of the skirt.
Grebo interlude while I try and work out my pinning. So with everything pinned in place, again I'm just using a whip stitch to secure it so that it doesn't show up on the outside of the skirt very much. Here I'm just stitching down the top part of the cascade so that it is anchored to the waistband. And now again, because of our fraying problem, we're just hemming all the way around the waistband and then hemming all the way at the bottom of the skirt, making sure not to attach those cascades to the hem. Because the bottom of the bodice and also the top part of the skirt are both already hemmed, we're just stitching those together to make the waistband, as it's already very heavily reinforced. However, the machine was struggling a little bit with getting 6 layers of fabric all sewn together.
So, the body of my dress is now in one piece, and I'm just going to mark where I'd like the neckline. So I'd like it quite high in the front, so just to expose the collarbone, and a little bit low enough so that I can have a nice necklace on and it be seen if I want it. So I'm literally just marking where I'd like it to come with some tailor's chalk, and at the back I'd actually quite like it a bit lower because I never do a high front and a low back personally. So I'm just going to mark where my 1920s bra is, and mark just above that. And I'm also going to take in these shoulders a little bit. I don't know if you can see, but my bra strap's exposed. Terrible. So I'm just going to take the neckline a little bit in like that and mark that on as well. I'm only doing it on one side so that I can double up on the other side to make sure that it's even. So, when I've cut out the neckline, I'll join you again.
You can always use your neckline pieces as a cape for your cat. He doesn't look very impressed with me, and nor am I, because I completely forgot to show you that I again folded twice and whip stitched my neckline in place.
So here we are with our almost finished dress. I think it's looking pretty good, even though I'm not normally a fan of 20s, but I do think it needs a belt just to balance the colour on the lower half a little bit. Now I don't have a ribbon that's the appropriate colour, so I'm going to be using this as a base and gathering this as a strip up on top of it, just to balance the two shades of pink. So I'm going to start by attaching this to this ribbon and then gathering it up, but I'll show you the process now.
So I'm just stitching one side of my strip of fabric down onto the ribbon, and then I'll do the same on the other side. Now that I have both sides attached, I'm just going to turn it inside out so you can't see the seamed edges. Next, I'm gathering my pink fabric all the way along the edge, and then we'll pull it tight so that it lies flush with the ribbon underneath. The reason I decided to use the ribbon is because this has quite a lot of stretch in it, this pale pink fabric. So once you've done your needle in and out, you just pull it taut to the width of the ribbon and secure it in place. So to hide the ugly edges of that, I'm just going to take this already hemmed strip and wrap it over the edge to hide all those edges and keep it secure. These will also function to become the ties of the belt. And now that our belt is all done, it's time for our final reveal.
And so here is our finished dress. So there are quite a few things I really like about it. I really love this sort of little Macintosh rose detail that we went for in the end. I'm still not convinced by the 1920s shape. I still think that it just doesn't suit me terribly well. But then again, I also think that modern low-waisted jeans don't suit me, so it's just one of those things. I'm really happy with the dress overall. I love the sleeves. I think they're fabulous. It's also incredibly comfortable. A couple of little things I'd change is I will bring these shoulders in a little bit more because they do have a tendency to sort of hang off the back a little bit. I think if I were to make it again, I'd put a little bit more sort of volume in the skirt. It's fine for what it is, but I think if I was to sort of do it again, I'd like a little bit more movement there. I find that if I sit down, it's sort of a little bit tight over the hips. But overall, I thought this was a really fun project, very much outside my comfort zone. I've never done 20s, I never work with pink, I've never used a 1922 sewing machine before, so overall it was a really good experience. I think I like the end result, and if you liked these antics, please subscribe and hit the little like button so that they notify you when I upload again. And I've got some really fun things planned for the autumn, so I hope you join me again in future. Goodbye.
Oh, I do like to be beside the seaside. Yes, I do like to be beside the sea. Yes, I do like to walk along the brom, 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 when the brass bands play diddly-om, bom, bom. So do let me be beside the seaside. I'll be beside myself with glee. And there are lots of girls besides. I should like to be beside the seaside, beside the sea.